Well, another 4 weeks have flown by, Mr. John. How you been, buddy?
I'm well, sir. How are you? You're looking dapper.
I am. Well, I'm surprised. I haven't had a chance to, for the sake of the audience, we always have a little chat off camera before we hit the record button. But I haven't
Hmm.
had a chance to tell you, John, I had the weekend in the Dominican Republic. Now, you have
Oh,
no idea how far that is for me. So
oh, I'm
I
sure.
had a crazy week. I flew out on Friday. I got to the Dom Rep on to the hotel eventually 10:30 at night. Saturday I took care of business and then I flew back Sunday afternoon into Frankfurt and I haven't slept really all weekend. Not from partying, just from
Hmm.
time lag, the jet lag. So yesterday I went to sleep and I slept 11 hours. I haven't done that since I was a teenager. So I actually feel good today. I think if I'm getting it right and I don't have one of those lapsing spells. But the Dom Rep, John, before we get into all of the other stuff we normally talk about, and I know you've got an action-packed, info-ridden show plan for us as you normally do. It was an interesting one, this, because I've been to all over the Caribbean. I had to go there. I was sourcing one of the raw materials for myself, which is basically aloe vera, because I want to do something with that. But I also went out representing an investment group that was looking at a project. It was just coincidental. I said, well, look, I've been meaning to go there anyway. I'll go and have a look for you, check it out. But for those that haven't been there, it borders with Haiti. So yeah, I didn't go anywhere near that border. So you fly in, the whole thing is all set up for tourism. Um, and amazingly friendly people, John, because again, this is a typical, um, what would the word be? A typical misclassification of people. Like when you meet Iraqis or Afghanis or Iranians outside of the country, they tend to be a little bit bitter and a little bit angry. That they miss their family, they miss their homes, they miss their food and culture. I get it, but when you go to the countries where they're from, you really get a feel of who these people are. And I was not surprised, but I enjoyed the experience because super friendly people. You know, I'm very lucky because I speak fluent Spanish, and they were like, "Whoa, this is weird. This white guy speaking Spanish at us." But from
Yeah.
what I saw, and I had a good drive around, I did about 500-600 miles driving all over. It's all set up for tourism. There's some amazing resorts there, and there is a construction boom. So everywhere you look, they're constructing. There's new resorts going up everywhere. Hell of a lot of American dollars and Canadian dollars. When I looked at the airport, it was mostly US and Canadian, but a big section of that tourism factor coming from Europe as well. I saw Russians, Czechs, English. There was a lot of Spanish people. So a very interesting country, but I would imagine that I did see poverty there as well. You know, I saw kids and people collecting trash at the side of the road, recycling bottles that you normally would. So it's one of these countries, John, that again, once this reset happens, I imagine that is going to be exploding with foreign investment. That country, it already is heavily into the whole tourism industry, but retirement homes, good hospitals. I found the infrastructure great. They got really good highways everywhere. The food, I only ate a couple of things. I'd have the an omelet for breakfast, and then the hotel food. Absolutely, some of the best food I've had in my life. I was
Wow.
very, very impressed with it. I mean, yes, it was a nice hotel I stayed in, but even still, I've stayed in nice hotels that don't have good quality food and not expensive. $55 for a T-bone was really good value and it was high quality. So interesting place. If you're sick of Mexico, you want something different. The Dominican Republic, I think, offers very good alternative. I couldn't tell if it's good value for money because I didn't really have a look at multiple resorts, but I can certainly tell you that it's one of these countries that I would absolutely put money on exploding after the reset. So anyway, I got back yesterday. I've been up doing all my stuff today. I got two shows lined up, but I'm dying to hear what you've been putting together for us, John, because I know every time we do one of these shows, once a month now, you've got some really good stuff to share. So the microphone is yours.
Well, it's good to see you back. Always, mate. It's always great to have a reconnect reprise with you, first and foremost. I always laugh and I tell you this offline, as you say, for the sake of audience. Every time I see you on Nick, I invariably am on there 2 days later. And it's just kind of funny how we round robin. And thank you for the acknowledgement on his last show. I appreciate that.
I have to be careful when I'm on with Nick because I know that you go on a couple of days later, so I don't like to share too much because I think, oh, I know John wants to share that himself, but some
No,
of the
it's
stuff
fine.
that you share with me is just too important, I think, to keep it back, even if it is for 48 hours. So,
No,
but
it's totally fine. Yeah, that's why I send it to you, because there's trust there, and you do a great job as always with him and everybody else. Um, Before we get into the financial stuff, since we're talking about the miscellaneous, I did want to talk to you about we're a couple days removed now from the Super Bowl, and
oh
President
yeah,
Trump being there. Well, interesting little story to share with you. Kendrick Lamar, as you know, did the halftime show, and we put the comms on along with SG's side of CUNY's Patriot, which we share a lot of information back and forth, as you know, being on there.
hmm
And he had the comms where he was calling out pedophilia. President Trump being there for the first time ever as a sitting president. It said in the stands, "Game over," which they're saying to the end of pedophilia. The interesting story inside of that is that I've actually met him a couple of times. He lives here in the Los Angeles area, and a girlfriend that I had many years ago, her ex-husband is a pastor of this little church in an area called El Segundo, which is basically where the LAX airport is. If you've flown in the area, you're
yeah,
probably familiar.
I know that area.
So it's just a few minutes removed from the airport, and so I've been to that little church, and his real name is actually Kendrick Duckworth. So obviously his alias is Kendrick Lamar, and so it's not a huge fan of that music per se, but that's fine. But he is a Christian, and he is working on his walk with God, to his credit. And it's interesting how he's sort of, he's big in the industry. He's been on the precipice of it, but he's a star, but he's at a different echelon than, say, somebody like Bono or whatever, or
Yeah,
Sting.
yeah,
But you know who he is. And yet he's been used, I think, by the good guys to call out pedophilia, because you can't get to that level without either getting your hands dirty or getting some residue on you. And yet, ironically, he's being used as part of the reveal, if you will.
yeah. I was flying that when the Super Bowl was on. I was flying. Should I be embarrassed about this? Not really, but I don't even know who won. I heard that the Philadelphia team was playing. Who were they playing?
Eagles and the Chiefs were playing. Yeah,
Who won then?
Philadelphia won,
Ah, that's
and
good. At
rather
least,
convincingly as well.
yeah, there was a lot of speculation that the game was already fixed and the results were called on that. So, but
They
Trump,
were.
I didn't know Trump was there. Because I was sleeping. I didn't have time to catch up. And I'm not any sports fan. It's not just I'm not anti-American football,
Sure.
but I'm not a sports fan. I'm not competitive, John. So I just never got into it. Um, so Trump
Well,
was there, but Elon spent a lot of money on the halftime ads. I saw a couple of those.
yeah, what was like 40 million or something, somewhere in that range. He spent quite a
Were
bit.
they were they crazy? What would be the word? Controversial?
I didn't see them all, to tell you the truth, because I didn't watch the game. I didn't want to help the ratings out, but I
Hmm.
saw some of the after. I mean, there were a lot of comms in there about what's going on. They're just
All right.
it's really the great reveal is the long and the short of it, right?
Where did they hold it this year? In which was it in Florida again?
New Orleans,
New
Louisiana,
Orleans. New
Superdome.
Orleans. Superdome, of course. Yeah, I remember now since the hurricane. All right, well that's
Right.
interesting. Trump's been actually quite busy. I had lunch with somebody today, and he was saying, he wants to change the name of Greenland to Red, White, and Blue Land. And I started laughing and said, "Yeah, come on." He says, "No, I'm serious. That's what he's a Danish guy. That's what he's proposed." I said,
Yeah,
"That is kind of funny because
it
he's
is.
taken the literal translation and said, well, it's not going to be Greenland anymore." So,
Well,
but
while he was on the plane, David, Air Force One, he signed the Gulf of America while he was touching down on Sunday.
yeah, I mean, is that a real thing? They're changing the name of the Gulf of
Yeah,
America?
yeah, that's a real
Yeah.
thing. It's a real thing,
I
and he's
mean,
going after Canada next.
it's quite, with that one, there's a little bit of logic you can follow because the actually amount of miles that they share, it actually is about 50-50, and they've had it long enough. Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, why not? I don't think it's going to make any big difference. It's just a patriotic thing to do. Then what was the other thing? All of this investigation, this misappropriation of funds from the aid sort of side of it is shocking. The amount of money, like Chelsea Clinton, $83 million. She spent three of it on a wedding and then another three of it, on a house and mansions. The misappropriation of funds that they've been given from that particular fund, uh, it goes beyond the word corruption. The
Oh, yeah.
corruption is, just giving a cop a bribe in Mexico or something, or helping somebody along with building permits. But This is just downright organized criminal gangs. This is just a mafia where they've
Yeah.
got that organized and sending that much money to the most ridiculous things. And then all of a sudden they've got no accounting for it. Zelensky's been saying, well, out of all of that money, he's only received this much. And it's scandalous. So you can see why there's that many people kicking off and furious about it. There's an interesting one. The Jesuit priests in Ireland were taking money for helping immigration there, and all of a sudden they said, we've got no money. They cut off their funding. So Jesuit priests helping Islamic, well, mostly Muslim immigrants into a Christian country using American money. I mean,
Yeah.
why? When they've got millions of homeless people in America, your infrastructure is falling apart, bridges, roads, toll booths. I remember somebody was saying to me, I went through this toll booth. It looked like it had been there since the 1920s. I was putting my foot down to get through it faster in case it fell down on top of me. And then your healthcare system, there's that many problems in the States that the American people need to get sorted out, but they're doing Jesuit priests, immigrants, Ireland, money from the US government. I mean, so I'm enjoying watching all that. He's doing a great job. He's come out the starting gate on full power, and Elon and the rest of his gang are all helping. I think it's brilliant.
So a couple of things, Dave, to add to that point before we, queue up the articles and such. One, it's exposing the Catholic Church and all the rampant corruption.
Yeah,
Yes, I was Catholic, so I know all
so
about
was
that.
I.
You're right. I mean, and there are good Catholics to be sure, but I'm talking about the hierarchical structure that's go. I mean, just for those watching, because I know it's a sensitive subject, but it is what it is. It's what you said. It's the cabal at their worst or finest. Interesting study X22 did last night that I pulled up, not ironic or coincidental because there are none, to our podcast today. I thought the timing was interesting, David. So of the 36 trillion, quote unquote, debt that we have, guess how much of that is actual consumer debt?
Out of 36, I would say 5, 6,
$10 billion.
10.
So he
The
can
rest of it is
easily,
all military industrial complex
well, it's all these other things,
yeah, miscellaneous.
Government programs of having hamburger meat sitting in rooms rotting, somebody watching that. I mean, these are the ridiculous banal things that we've been going on for decades. So
Yeah.
he could just easily write that off with Masara, and boom, what we do, we just got rid of the central banks right there, which we're going to touch on in a moment. So good segue, David. Let's cue you up into that.
Yeah.
Let me know when you can see this, per usual.
I got it on X. What we're looking at, well, this is from
Majid from a couple days ago, right? He's been a pretty good source for a number of things. He's talking, in essence, David, about the president of the republic files a complaint against the federal court. Basically, Soudani is corrupt, not unlike all the other political figures throughout the world we've already discussed many times. But what's interesting is Elon Musk and Doge are firmly ensconced in Iraq, as they are throughout America and most of the world for that matter. So you're going to see more and more initiatives coming out. They're already going after the Department of Miseducation, DOE. They're already auditing the IRS. Don't be surprised when they go and audit the Fed and the gold reserves, which they haven't done since 1956. And we find the emperor has no clothes, right?
Yeah.
But
I would be very surprised if there's anything in those vaults gold-wise.
I'll tell you where a lot of it is: Grand Canyon.
Yeah,
no,
there's
really.
a lot of strange stuff going on down there at the moment.
Plaster gold is some of the nicest, finest 24 karat, comes off in sheets like sheetrock or papyrus. It's
really
presidents have tried to get in there for years and they've been shut out by the government because that's how opulent it is. But anyway, I'm just showing you how everything interconnects, as you well know. So basically, there's a lawsuit going against Soudani because they were holding back the salaries from the Article 12 of the budget to the Kurdistan region, as well as the citizens of Iraq, right?
Yeah.
Who are set to get one exchange rate with the reset, which is different from the rest of us outside of the country of Iraq, but they get a annuity every year of oil stipend credits because of obviously they're living in the middle of an oil utopia, as they should, and they should have gotten it a long time ago. So basically, that's Trump and Musk all over it, imprints, where now they're going to force the salaries to be paid. And this goes back retroactive to 2024 when the original 3-year budget, as you know, was established. So you got to catch up for all those payments, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to get out on time. And you have to do that with a changed rate. Can't do that with a corrupt program rate. So it's pretty important, actually. Let me show you the next thing here. Let me see if can you see this here, the next one?
Yeah, the collapse has begun. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so this is Angel Hunter on X. Collapse has begun. Global elites in full panic mode. Banks are imploding. I just got word the other day from one of our team members that the Treasury now is firmly ensconced in the banks. And a lot of this manipulation, the banks that were money laundering or delaying payments and playing all their stupid games, Treasury with Trump is slapping their hand down saying, no way, you're not doing this anymore. Get to it. BlackRock is falling. How much you want to bet that Trump and Musk have probably bought that out and are buying up a seismic amount of XRP and Ethereum in order to give back to the people? That's going to have an interesting flavor to it. Reset is here. The cabal is done. Well, we're seeing the smacks of the cabal. We just talked about it being taken down. So you know that that's happening. Let me go to this one. Was very interesting, David, and it's not a lot to it, but yet there is a lot to it. According to Drew Kornreich on X, the new worldwide banking system, QFS, goes live March 10th of this year. The RV will occur after that date. For the first time ever, we actually have what appears to be a fairly substantive timeline. As of this broadcast today, we're basically about a month on the outside. And this is referring to the public exchange, obviously, just for, to be precise. Then let's tie this other one in here. You and I always tie the tie downs. How many times have we talked about this? XRP. NASDAQ has, this is Jack the Ripple or X, as you can see. You see that okay, David? You getting
Yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Just making sure before I go through it. NASDAQ has officially submitted a proposal rule to change the SEC to list the trade shares of coin shares for XRP or EFT trust or ETF trust. Now, we're not saying get EFTs. We're just saying it's significant that they're starting to pair together, on all these different platforms vis-a-vis the blockchain, right? So XRP is going to be the ultimate, as you know, mechanism that makes these currencies go, right? And so once Iraq goes, as always, we're watching for Vietnam. Chamisa's out there talking a little bit more as well. So he's kind of giving you breadcrumbs. So everything is coalescing to the center of this thing. We're kind of like, I call it, like I told you offline, the walls are basically closing in.
Yeah, I was just checking a few things how XRP's been doing. It's been dropping the last few days, but this is a lot of people freak out when things start to drop. They start dumping it. So what was it? March 10th, you said, was it?
March 10th, yeah. And gold, look at gold is over, I think, 29.29. I checked this morning. That's eclipsing that 3,000 mark, which is going to be incredibly important because gold is the tie down to the bonds, the cryptos, the currencies, precious metals. Obviously, everything, as you know, as we've discussed, is intertwined. It's amazing to me that some people in the financial world just don't see that. They only see their little corner of the world. I'm always amazed by that.
Well, the issue is there have always been, it's like doctors. Doctors don't know anything but what they've been taught. And it's the same in the banking world because they get into it because they start in one place and end up in another. And they just follow a set map. And the map is, okay, this is what you talk about. This is what we know about. That's the only thing they can talk about. They're just one idiot teaching another idiot how to be a future idiot. It's true.
Yeah, just perpetuate the cycle. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they just perpetuate it. I'm looking to see if there's anything else on my notes at the moment. I don't think so, John. I think we could, everything else will just flow smoothly. What are you feeling about? So you were saying, let me think. I've lost my train of thought now because I went in a different direction. Trump's still been trying to push through and get everything sorted in Iraq because the complexities of the political situation, nobody wants to relinquish the power. You've got people waiting there for a hell of a long time for salaries. When the money was devalued during the invasion, now they're getting ready to sort of throw out the corrupt government and put it back into place in the hands of the people that care about the country. Drill, baby, is now happening. So oil will start to flow. They should set a fixed barrel price because it hasn't been fluctuating too much, but I can see and anticipating quite a drop in the rates on the oil. It should come down to about $80. What is it now? About 101, is it? What is it?
So I'm glad you brought that up, David, because that is another key counterpoint or side point to the whole thing with the dinar. What President Trump is doing is he's forcing with Doge's help, the transparency of the corruption that's rampant in Iraq and throughout the world, as we've already said, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to make them bow the knee to surrender to the reset. That exposes the corrupt Iranian proxies and militias within the green zone we've talked about in Parliament. What does that do? They've been living off oil and money laundering the dollar. That's now being cut off and cessated. Last I checked, it was around $71, $72. I haven't checked in the last couple hours. But the magic number we want to watch for, to your question, is 65. Because at that point, Iraq can no longer live on the oil. They're going to have to be forced to the diversification of all the things we already know that they have in tow. So 65 is the magic number. But here stateside, that's going to be good for the people to get some relief on the pump prices, but also at food, right? Because what gets the food? Shipping, trucks. You lower the price of diesel, you lower the price of the cost of food. They go hand in hand concurrently. So that $65 mark is what we want to be watching for when it hits that. We're not far away.
Yeah, I mean, my numbers are way off. Actually, I thought it was higher than that. But I'm happy to see it because most of the time, the price of a barrel of oil controls a lot of things all over the globe. Mm-hmm. So we need if the Americans are anticipating to be drilling for that much again, then they need to get their act together in preparation for that, because it controls so many different negotiational deals as well. The Middle East want in, you've got Venezuela, they want in. But if you notice, there's a lot of countries that have a hell of a lot of oil there that are in the poverty line, such as all these African countries like Angola, Nigeria. All of these African countries have been living in poverty for years. Zimbabwe, another one. I bet they've got a lot of oil as well. They're probably just utilizing it. Iran with all the sanctions on. So the cabal have been artificially keeping all these people living in the dark ages, really. They're not letting the countries grow. China did a really interesting deal with Venezuela to revamp one of their oil petroleum refinery premises. And then, of course, the Biden administration started chipping off and saying, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. So every country should have the right to expand their own commerce. I mean, America would do it, and if anybody else doesn't like it, it's their tough business. Get your own. Stop looking over the fence of your neighbor to see what they're doing. Concentrate on your own shit is the moral of that story. So there's so much going on, and the way that the political movement has been moving at such a high, fast triathlon race. I mean, he's hitting it from every angle. And I don't remember any president that's come out of the gates as strong as this. I mean, within hours, they closed the border. They were reinforcing the wall. 90% of illegal immigrants crossing have come back. Out of the 300,000 children, they've found nearly 30%. I think it might be a bit more, 33% of all these missing children. But the Biden administration didn't do anything, because we know why. But you know, Trump's been busy on that. His political opponents, he's had Colombia buckle. He's had Mexico agree, Argentina agree. Everybody's coming to his side now, and I know what's happening in the European Union. They're all terrified of what he's going to do next, because we've still got this ongoing situation with Gaza. Again, he gave them a little shot across the bow today. I don't know if I heard this was true or not, but he says, all right, if you guys want to play that game, I'll eventually come down and turn all of the Gaza Strip into a casino and resort. And then nobody gets that land. I'll keep it. So he is making headway. And if you don't agree with his politics, that's unfortunate for you. But, you know, you've got to look at the end result. Think of an omelet. Does it look nice when it's in the pan? Do you think, oh, I can't wait to eat that? It doesn't. It looks runny and miserable and a little bit sickly. But, you know, add some heat and look what you get. Fantastic breakfast. It's the same thing like this. He's going through this time period now of breaking the eggs and upsetting people. But until you see the end results, shut up, because stay there and see what he's going to do and see how it all falls into place. I'm loving it, John, personally.
Well, it's high time, David, bottom line. I mean, in an interesting counterpoint to what you were just saying a minute ago with sort of your thesis is he's working with Venezuela to make a deal. Zimbabwe already said no to China, as you know, last August to $300 million mining, because they know they've got a lot more stuff that exceeds the value of that, as we've discussed many times before. There's your Bolivar, there's your Zim. Zimbabwe's talked about gold backing their ZIG dollar now, as we've said before with the coin. What accompanies that? the Zim bonds when Chamisa comes back. I'm just repeating this for those who didn't hear it or knew the game, whatever case may be. But another interesting point, I didn't get to show you this slide, but I can sum it very simply. Judy Shelton, who we've widely thought, or when I say we, I mean our team has widely thought that it would be likely she's going to be the new Fed chair to bring back the gold standard. Actually, it turns out she might be an advisor to Ron Paul, who Elon Musk has just appointed to audit said Fed. What happens after you audit the Fed? The emperor has no clothes. The central bank and the Federal Reserve, which he already baked into the Treasury 4 years ago during COVID, disintegrates. Then what do? You restore the gold standard to the new US note, thereby removing the Fed dollar, which is not Fed or has no reserves. And I want to point out something important, David, which you know, but for posterity for the audience. Forget what Trump says first. That's always a negotiating piece. You say, well, what do you mean? Okay, let's look at last year. What did he say about cryptos? He was all against it. They needed more regulation, blah, 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 blah. That was a putting out bait to see how people would react. What, 6-8 months later, he wants to be the crypto czar president and decentralize it and make America the greatest crypto nation in the world, right?
Yeah.
Fast forward to present day. Now he's talking trash about BRICS. And everybody reacts and says, oh no, he's against BRICS and he's against the currencies. No, he's not. He's putting that out the same way he did with cryptos. He wants he wants these countries to nationalize and get off the dollar. You have to think critically and logically. He's talking about the Federal Reserve note, not the new US note. So it's a sleight of hand. He actually is, he's got a ton of dinar. He's got a ton of dong. Do you think he would buy that if it didn't make good business financial sense? Of course not. So you can't pay attention to what he says, but what he's doing in his moves, he's the master negotiator. You always put out, when you're negotiating with somebody in sales, you know, you put out a lowball offer or whatever, or you top down sell to see, like an example would be if you're selling the copper and the cost of it is, you know, $5,000 and you charge 50, you know, you're not going to get 50, but your goal is to get, you know, 30 or something. And you just negotiate till you reach that number. He's doing the same exact thing in parlance over here, if that makes sense.
It's amazing how many people that works with as well. I bought a car last week. I wanted this particular one, but I pretended I had no interest in it. He said, "Well, what about that?" And I said, "No, I don't want that. I want this. This is, this is above the. You know, I'm not going to pay for that. How much is that? Come on, man. That was the one I was always interested. So the sleight of hand and the business tactics. He's a master tactician when it comes to this stuff. You know, I think anybody that doesn't realize that you need a business running the USA because politicians have been created. They've been mollycoddled and massaged into place. Hey, come on, come on. But this guy's fought his way up through the ranks. He's the Mike Tyson of the negotiational world. And having him at the helm, he plays hardball, but he knows it works. When he's got enough power in that hand to say, okay, that's fine. We'll put some sanctions on you and see how long that lasts. It took him 5 hours. You know, these clowns before couldn't get it done in 4 years. It took him 5 hours to fix it. You know, send all these guys back. There's some brilliant stories coming out, like when they were sending all those guys back to Colombia and the Colombian government said, oh, we don't want them. We've done their name checks. We know exactly who they are and we're happy to have them gone. So then you got to say to yourself, okay, well, how bad does it have to be if the Colombian government is saying, no, 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 we do not want these guys back, but it's okay for them to be let into the States and to be left walking around untethered and unchecked to continue their path of whatever naughtiness they choose, whatever the particular skill set is. And this is the thing, undocumented and unchecked people wandering around in a society, in essence, without walls, John, because I've had Brazilian people say, is it true that Americans live in houses without a wall around them? They couldn't believe it because they're used to that society being like that. Yeah, I said, yes, of course. People, most people don't lock the doors in these neighborhoods. They all know their neighbors and their kids all play together and they all barbecue on the 4th of July. And this is what America used to be like. Now, when you've got gangs of Venezuelans moving into districts and taking over the whole thing and the federal departments won't do anything about it. The police won't come in there and say it's not our problem. But what happened in the last 4 weeks? All of these places have been dismantled. And trust me, these trained SWAT teams, this is what they live for. If you think you're going to go into Colorado Springs Police Central Headquarters and say, okay, guys, today we're going to need the SWAT team. We're going to go in and take down a whole armed gang of Venezuelans that have been terrorizing citizens. Do you think those SWAT team members are going to say, well, what color rainbow vest shall I wear? These guys are all combat veterans that when they got out of the military service, joined police forces. They're used to the weapons. They use the same tactics when they go in there. This is what these guys live for. They would have been saying, yes, come on. I bet they couldn't wait to get down there.
Mm.
So it's a great thing that he's doing, utilizing skill sets of people that are specialized at doing the job. And this is why I like what he's done with some of these other people. You know, do you know the story about the dismissed army officer?
No, go ahead.
You know the story about that, right? There was one lieutenant colonel, if I remember, young guy, and he started squeaking and squawking about when the Americans pulled out of Afghanistan. He said, it's a disgrace how much we left there. All the equipment, all of the men that died fighting their lives to make that country safe. You've just walked out of the arsenal and left the keys in the lock. And he got dismissed for it. Because what he did is he put on notice his commanding officers and said, if I, as a commanding officer of my squad, are responsible for what happens inside my squad, you should be responsible too. So they fired him. And he's now being brought back in as a senior advisor inside the military area. I'm not particularly sure which office or field it is, but they brought him back, paid all his back pay, reinstated him with his rank. And now he's saying, this is great because now I can put all of these guys that made these decisions to leave billions of dollars worth of equipment. It could even have been in the trillions. Like what Trump said, don't you think it's easier to fill up that helicopter with gas and fly it across the border to a friendly country that's pro-America rather than just leaving it there for these guys to just help themselves? So a lot of these rights are being rectified, and this is what I'm enjoying most of all. Drilling for oil, getting in the American economy. I've heard somebody else say, oh, but you know, now we're restricted on China on the imports. Good, because yes, you might spend, it might be $1 yes, less for that item in the store, but you're just helping to reinforce somebody else's economy. You can make all these items inside the USA and put that stamp on a made in the USA. Most Americans would buy it because they're patriotic and proud to be American rather than being made in Bangladesh or China.
And it lasts longer as well, especially when it's made correctly. A couple of key points to what you just shared that's pretty important, right? So you said you need a businessman to run the business. Let's examine that for a second. There's more to that bite than what you just said, David. He's running the business out of business, meaning he's running the corporation out. That's why he's signing all these executive orders. He's signing himself out of the corporation back to the U.S. constitutional republic. Can't have sound money without a sound country constitutionally backed, right? So there's so many nuances inside of this. And then this just came out. I've just put this on my Telegram. This is from a guy named Adam Stevens. Okay, everyone, that's what I feel strongly about. It's a very important moment. Right now, President Trump today is meeting at the White House. He just finished with the King of Jordan. To be sure, this is about Gaza, but not just that. Who is the trustee of the Iraq dinar? You guessed it, Jordan. His Majesty, the King, to be exact, who is the one with the authority to set free the Iraq dinar. Just a data point. Meeting is already finished now. No coincidences on this one.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he's making all these moves, appointments, and meetings as a strategic alliance, and people very easily judge him for it. They don't wait to see the end result from what he's been cooking, and well, let's see what the end result is. I anticipate before we get into the summer that the Ukrainian conflict will be done, and so will Gaza. I think he's
That'll be done by April.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Like Easter time, maybe like the start of summer, June, because it depends on how much of their goals they want to relinquish, because each side has goals, what they want to get. There's got to be compromise, because the unfortunate side effect of the collateral damage is not only is it crashing the economy, making these places worthless and nobody wants to invest, it's the human factoring as well. How many people have been killed and or injured in such attacks on both sides,
And David, not just the Ukraine war, that's the beginning. That's already been dealt with. We've talked about that. Donbass, Lugansk, Russian provinces who are definitely on the side of the Ukrainians. You know better than I do with your geopolitical mastery. But you also have the domino effect. You have Ukraine, You have China, Taiwan, which involves Vietnam many times over for the dong.
Yeah.
You have Israel, save for last, Gaza Strip, right?
Yeah.
That's going to have ripple effects throughout the Middle East. This just came up that the 88,000 IRS, now ERS, External Revenue Service agents, that's another sign of the Constitutional Republic, by the way, to that point. He's going to be assigning them with guns to the border. So he's just repurposed the agenda that the Boudin administration pushed out and just inversing everything. He signed an executive order last night. I'm really happy about here in California because it's completely stupid and ridiculously erroneous. He's going back to plastic straws because I promise you, this ridiculous state of California, who's laden and replete with problems, the last thing that she'd be concerned about is straws. You have to actually ask the waitress or waiter for a straw. They don't give it to you. Yeah, and then when you get it, it's this paper thing that hurts your face or it implodes on you. It doesn't work. It blocks up in the drink.
Yeah.
So, just getting back to common sense, you're seeing it proliferate everywhere.
For small little things like that, I remember all of a sudden these straws. I mean, I don't use straws. I don't buy sodas from drive-through restaurants, and I'd rather just drink from the bottle or the cup. But when they do have to have one, it just lasts 5 seconds. What's the point? It's like,
right.
Give me a straw made out of newspaper. How long is it going to last?
Yeah.
And plus, the glue that they use in them is toxic. That's another thing as well. Although I think an alternative should be found, because when I owned some property in the Caribbean, I used to go there once every 3-4 weeks and clean it up. And I always found plastic bottles, straws with another one that floated up, and flip-flops, lone, sad flip-flops with the toe part torn out. Those things that float and last forever. So I don't know, have they done that in the States, John, where you get a plastic bottle now and the top is kind of still attached to it, even when you unscrew it? Do they do that?
Oh, sure. And what I would like to see, David, is go back to glass, because the plastic, as you know, has all these microbes and chemicals, the petroleum that's in it. We just go back to where we were years ago with glass. We'll be a lot better off. Just drink.
Plus, it's always recycled as well, because people don't throw things away if they're worth money. So if there's 5 cents or 10 cents on that, they'll recycle it. Many countries in Europe do that. You can still buy glass bottles of water and beer or cola, whatever. Holland is a good one. I remember there's always people pulling up the car park, opening the trunk and grabbing a case of recycled bottles and bringing them back in, It incentivizes people. Although, another thing about the recycling thing, I've forgotten what airport it was. I wanted to say Germany, actually. It might have been the UK, where they have one large trash can with all the different sections in. This is paper, this is garbage, whatever. When I looked inside it, it had the top of it had little individual slots with whatever you're disposing of.
Yeah.
But I saw the guy changing it out. It was just one bag. So it was just all going in.
Same place. Yeah.
Same place.
Yeah.
So, John, what can we expect to see in the next 30 days? What are your thoughts on that?
Economically, you mean, or just in general?
Well, I think a bit of both. I mean, what's the biggest thing is going to hit?
Well, to answer that, we have to go back to what you were talking about in terms of the speed of things, right? Is what I heard you say. Doge has an aggressive, I wouldn't call it aggressive. I would just call it might be ambitious to some, but it should be expected for most people in this movement that it's like a slingshot. You've been pulling it back for so long. Every action has an equal opposite reaction. It's going to go the other way much faster, right? Physics 101. So I say that to say that they set a very aggressive schedule of the first 100 days, right? So January, February, March. I would say that going into this period, we're going to see us go back at some point here, April, probably, to sound money. He's already removing the penny. It costs 3 pennies to make a penny, and it's not even made of copper anymore. So it's probably made.
And who uses them? I mean,
right.
And dimes are another one. They're so small. What's the point?
Well, I mean, that's probably because you have junk silver, right, which is nickels, dimes, and quarters, is still extremely valuable because pre-1965 it's 90% silver. You're not going to touch that, but you can get rid of the penny and save the people money that way. They're just showing people all the waste that we've had. But to your question, I would say we should see the private sector get paid out here pretty soon, which will lead to the public sector. So you want to be rooting for the private sector because it galvanizes the bond market, galvanizes the currencies. That's your foundational underlayment, as we've said many times over, which will lead to the public exchange. And then you're going to see the crypto market explode. Probably in April is typically the worst time of the year for the cryptos, but after that it'll recover quickly. So I would see a little bit of a spark in March, and then back on track in May, second quarter, right?
Yeah.
I would see precious metals just continuing to explode to the upside, because once people have money, they're going to start spending on that along with other currencies, because there's going to be a stream of currencies, to your point. Colombia peso, Venezuelan bolivar. I'm watching El Salvador very closely because they have 3 trillion in gold reserves, according to Nayib Bukele, that we discussed last time.
Yeah.
So I would say that you're going to see the reset proliferate. You're going to see all the extenuations of it. And I would say around April, before May, because remember, May 30th begins the World's Fair. That's where all those technologies, med beds, Tesla coil and free energy, and many, many other things, teleportation and flying cars and whatnot, will start to come out to the public eye over the next year. So they have to have Nassara roll out to finance that. So I would see it being this extenuated domino effect that will be very, very good for people, ultimately leading to where I know a lot of people feel, and I'm agreeing with them, where money will finally not matter anymore. And the currency of our talents and how we serve each other will really be front and center.
Yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? Because poverty and lack of money causes so much problem. But you can also go the other way, because if you have got money, you're always paranoid about somebody trying to trick you out of it, or you're going to lose it. Is that the right place to put it? Is this bank good? Is it gold good? What should I do with it? It
Well,
has this power to control people. Yeah,
That
no,
does, but ultimately what we need to do, David, and I'm glad you said it, because I educate my audience, or I don't say educate, I remind them, encourage them, I think is a better way to put it, about the mindset. We have to go from a lack to an abundance mindset, a fear-based to a faith-based, because as you know, the cabal has inculcated the mindset through MK Ultra, brainwashing, television media, and all kinds of stuff to get us to think in scarcity, fear, and lack. I'm still dealing with that on my channel all the time. What about this? What if that happens? I'm like, wrong question, wrong question. Can God trust you to steward it properly? That's all that matters. Because if your mind and your heart are postured correctly, everything else will take care of itself.
I completely agree. Things fall into place. You got to place your faith, your trust.
Yeah.
You put it in the trust. It's in my life, absolutely. If I ask for something, like right now, I'm looking for a good engineer, and I know for a project I've got, I know that a civil engineer will fall into my lap. I'll just say, and I start laughing, think, how long did that take? A week. So, but it's exciting times, John, and we look back over the last 4 years of what we've all been through. The first 4 years of Trump were very interesting, but we only knew a fraction of what we know now. Now this COVID and restrictions and wokeness and can't do this and that's it. There's 27 genders. It's done this massive worldwide awakening, and now we're saying, okay, I understand this more. There's more and more people that are coming to the party now, and they understand it more. So it's exceptionally interesting to see all this. And some of my favorite things, I'm doing a show in an hour now, but some of my favorite videos are from the average guy on the street who says, you know what? I ain't gonna take it anymore, and this is what I think, and now I figured this out, and what the hell is going on? The amount of people that are posting truthful content about what they're feeling and what their experience is, um, it's really, really encouraging for this worldwide movement of everybody coming up and standing in line together and saying, no, we're not going to vote you in anymore. No,
Right.
we have no faith in the Federal Reserve backless dollar anymore. It has no value. It only has value because people are trained to accept it. But what it ultimately is it worth? Is it worth anything in silver? Is it worth anything in gold? No, because there's nothing in the vaults. This is where things have got to change. Bring back the industry, the manufacturing, bring back the pride in people being a stamp made in the USA on it. You
Well,
need all of this stuff, getting
the
rid of all
people are
these
waking up.
silly brands.
Sorry, my apologies. The
No, buddy,
people are
I
waking up, and
see,
the adults are in charge now. Finally.
yeah. When I see all these silly brands that people have just decided that, like what is it? Like Louis Vuitton. Louis Vuitton came from Louis the 16th's wife wanted to take a carriage. And he said, okay, you're not allowed to have 17 carriages full of your stuff this year. When we go to the palace, you can have 3. So she hired this guy, Louis Vuitton, and he custom designed luggage to get all of her stuff into 3 carriages. It might be 2, might be 4, but let's just say 3. So that's where the whole Louis Vuitton came from. High quality, but expensive because it's high quality, but it has a back in it. But then you've got all these silly new brands like Barcelona, what's it called? Mercel, the one that was associated with Balenciaga, that one. And it's
Yeah.
god awful. If you look at it, it just looks like the designers had some bad tacos with a load of pasta and thrown up on some sheets of and designed it all. All of these silly things that they've educated people that they're thinking they need, you don't need it. And it's them using the money to show off that I have money, but they don't have money because that's why you're showing it off. Because anybody with real money doesn't dress like that. They're very discreet about it, you know. They might have an expensive wristwatch, but it won't be in your face. They're not wearing huge diamond necklaces and jewelry all over themselves.
Right.
And this is the difference for people to understand what wealth is going to be like. It's going to be a transition period for a lot of people. So look, you just spent 10 grand on that. All right, it's your first couple of weeks out the door, but you got to understand that, you know, you're going to have money. Money is not the object now. You're going to have to bring something else to the table that's tradable. So art or music or invention.
Mhm.
So, you know, what are you going to contribute to society? Because what most people contribute to society is financially based so they can pay the rent and pay the fuel bills and put food on the table. But you take that responsibility away, that worry away, and say, what would you really like to do? What would be your dream job if you could do anything?
Mhm.
Well, I mean, fireman, policeman, ambulance, astronaut, but there'll be people out there that'll say, you know what? I'm sick of walking past those 3 blocks every day when I walk my kids to school and then seeing a load of junkies and drug addicts down there. I want to clean up the whole neighborhood. So I'm going to use my money to specialize in cleaning up and helping these people get either off drugs or into some form of employment. There'll be so many humanitarian projects just
Mhm.
from the average Joe because
Yeah.
now they've woken up. They know what's coming. They can see they've been lied to about. They're going to say, I'm going to protect the future so my future generations don't have to go through what we did. And this is all able through this great financial reset with the dongs coming, the dinar, the
Mhm.
Zimbabwe, and all of the countries being allowed to run their own business the way that they want and not be influenced by the World Health Organization saying, oh, did I not tell you next week you have to have another pandemic in that part of Africa? We'll call it cholera. No, let's go the other one. We'll call it Ebola and just say there's a little bit out there so we keep everybody panicked a bit. People are going to say, look, on your bike, jog on. What are you even doing in this country? You're not from here, pal. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, the only limits will be people's imagination, and that's again, that's a
Great
mindset
point.
issue. Once again, we just got to get back to the currency of being of service to each other, and we're going to need more tradespeople, like Trump said in his first term. You can't bring all this wealth, and who's going to build all this stuff? I mean, we need strong men again who lead from within, who make the society what it ultimately is and can be again.
That's the other thing that the left have done. This communist stuff, they've taken all of the training programs away. So we don't have construction workers, electricians, plumbers, car mechanics, all of these simple things now that people relied on. You know, car mechanic now, John, all he does is remove one part and put another one on. He plugs a computer in to diagnose it. They don't have the old school guys where drive my car and tell me what's wrong with it. Oh, I don't know. I just plug the computer in, man. It tells me what's wrong. You know, I don't trust computers. I had a rental car in the Dominican Republic, and I gave the guy a list. I said, "This is all. You know, your tires are all out. Doing this when I was doing 70." But anything else we haven't covered, John? Where are we at?
Well, I think we ran the gamut. I was just going to say in closing, it'd be funny if Christopher Walken rented a car.
Okay,
Hey,
what
this car, it's
the hell is
terrible. It
this?
doesn't work the way it should. I don't like it. What are you doing here? It's
Thing's
crazy.
vibrating all over the street, man. It's dangerous. It
It
was
threw
dangerous.
me out of my car. Wow.
Hey, I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
This actually applies to exactly what we were talking about. On the way back up from my trip, I got stopped by there's a lot of police sitting in under trees, the shade of a tree. So they've got the lights on, but the doors are open and they're just like that. So on the way back, this guy runs out and he's got an old school radar gun on me. And he flags me down, pulls me over, and he's a young kid. He's probably about 25. And he's got his jacket on and there's a webcam here, recording
Mhm.
cam. And he said to me, you were driving a bit fast before this section. You got to slow down to 80. You were doing 110. I was like, all right, no big deal. I'll pay you. And he said, license. So I have a German license. Gave him that. He said, German license. And we're speaking in Spanish, of course. And then he said, how long are you here for? I said, I'm going back tomorrow. He says, oh, we don't have time to do any of the paperwork and tickets. What can we do about this? And I know exactly how this works. I said, well, I said, have you been here all day? He said, yeah. I said, what, standing out in this hot sun all day long? They don't give you a break? He said, no. I said, well, that's a little bit much because I do know that you guys don't get a big salary. He said, it's true. I said, what about if I was to make a contribution to your family so you can maybe not work so much and spend more time with your kids? How many kids you got? He says, I got 3. I said, exactly. So if you were to get a little bit more money every month, you wouldn't need to do the hours and stand out here all day, would you? He said, no. I said, there you go. I'd like to make a contribution to your family. I gave him $40 in local money. And he said, thank you very much, sir. Enjoy your day.
On your way. On your way.
Now, this is good and bad before we end the show, right? The good thing
Sure.
about it, that whole thing from the stop to the end, I'm not joking you. I've been
Mhm.
through this 100 times. I know exactly how to play. It took about 2.5, 3 minutes. Now, do I want to waste my entire day waiting for him to sit behind me in the lights while in writing out a ticket that I just have to pay? Or is it not better off going straight into his pocket so he can buy his kids ice cream and some burgers this weekend? So I don't feel guilty about that at all. But the point I'm making is the police and fire services and ambulance people, they should be paid more, not football stars and basketball stars.
Actors.
Pay the police more and they wouldn't be corrupt because they're out there risking their lives, They stop the wrong guy and he wants to get away with whatever he's got in the trunk, they're going to start shooting. So, yes, I'm guilty of contributing to his family, but I know he would have done. He would have bought his kids something nice. And you know what? He was happy. The locals said, oh my God, I've never heard of anybody doing it like that. Normally you have to argue and you get out and you leave it there. I said, no, I just went, how many hours have you been working? How many kids you got? But he had the camera on, but I realized when he was asking for me, he wasn't recording. So then I said, what about if I make a contribution? And
Well,
you wouldn't have to do it if they were paid for what they're worth doing.
what you're doing, you're greasing the skids in the short term, but you're ultimately talking about being generous with people, and that's where we're going to be able to be more freely and generous because we won't be in lack once again. We can retrain the police here, at least in America, to be under the Constitution, not the corporation. Once again, just got a
Yeah.
breaking thing here, David. I wanted to read to you as we sign off. This is from Ajit again. Elon Musk calls for the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, another big boondoggle, remaining account balance of $711,586,678 to be returned to the American taxpayers. So Nasara once again.
Yeah. And if they get rid of this, if they work on levies and import taxes and fees instead of taxing everybody for what they earn,
Yeah.
it's going to be a really fair system putting it back.
Well,
I got a taste that was something else I forgot to tell you, John, how
yeah.
sneaky the governments have got now. I got a ticket sent to me when I was in the UK driving. They sent a ticket to where the registered address is of the car. I was doing 11 miles an hour over the limit. So they sent me a ticket. So they said, will you drive the car? And I said, well, how does it work? Well, what's the fine? They said, oh, we work out the fine because based on your income. So then I said, you want me to discuss my personal financial situation with you in order for you to figure out how much to fine me? They said, that's the way it works, sir. I said, forget it. I'm never going to do that. I said, I had an American friend of mine. He lets me use his license. I said, it's an American guy. Here's his license. Go chase him. He's in Fort Lauderdale. But how scandalously corrupt is that?
Wow.
They base their fine for 11 miles an hour over what you tell them that you earn. And this is the thing about income tax. It's voluntary information that you have to share, your voluntary tax return. It's trickery in the words. So to
Yeah.
stop that and give the money back to the American people, or actually everywhere, would be an amazing advance forward. And imagine the smiles and the happiness that's going to create with people.
Well, again, David, we could go on and on about that, but I've shown it to you in my paperwork. It's all by consent
Yeah,
and permission. It's all free will. And there's not a single law in the books of the old IRS that shows that individuals have to pay any taxes of any type. So it was all rubbish to begin with.
I
Same with
know.
property excise, tax, capital gains, all that's being just wiped out, returned to the constitutional republic. So
I think the way that it works is they're going to say, let's put this out in the public and see how many people object to it. And oh my God,
right,
people accepted it. They just started paying. All right, do it again, do it again.
right.
There's not enough people saying, hey, pal, you've overcharged me. What are you talking about?
Who in their right mind is going to say, oh no, I love these property taxes, I love these exorbitant registration BS fees and all that. I love paying that and barely getting by and having to sacrifice my kids' sporting equipment because I can't pay. I have to make choices between bills or vacation.
Baby,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's time. We got the bill from the government. Let's sit down and pay it together. Oh my God. Never mind Valentine's night. It's paying some bills to the government.
Make sure you pay it to your old pal Bell. Send him my way.
Arkansas. John, it's been great catching up.
You too, mate. I appreciate your insight and your time. And again, if anybody's looking for currencies, dinar, dong, zim, Venezuela, and all the rest, all 209 countries, we'll leave that link in the description. Thanks again, brother, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Absolutely. Be 4 weeks if nothing else happens, but it always goes like that. So we'll speak soon. Keep up the messaging, by the way. I love your messages, John. They're great.
Likewise, mate. God bless.